welcome to another one of my Artist Alley tips videos. So in the last video I did about business card tips, I got a question asking about what should I sell at a convention. So I thought I would address that question in this video. So let's get started. So the basic question is, what should I sell? Well, my question to you then is, what do you enjoy selling? If you enjoy doing illustrations, sell prints. If you enjoy making plushies, sell those. If you enjoy making popsicle man figurine thingies, sell those then, I suppose. Just make stuff that you enjoy making and can feel confident in selling. People can usually tell when you're not proud of your work, and it can make them hesitant to see the value in an item you're selling, so make what you love. I always found that when I enjoy creating the thing I'm making, that it really shines through in the finished product, and people pick up on that, so make the stuff that you enjoy making the most. And that kind of sort of leads into the next part of the question, which is, should I sell fan art? In my experience, most conventions kind of have a bit of a rule on fan art, and it's usually a 50-50 rule. You're supposed to have your work be no more than 50% fan art and at the very least 50% original work. Some conventions may be a little bit more strict about it and they want most of your portfolio to be original work over fan art, and I think there's even some instances, very rarely though, where they just outright ban fan art of any kind. So just make sure which convention you're going to, you check to see what their rules are about selling fan art. Personally, I only draw fan art of shows or video games, etc. that I actually enjoy myself. Again, in this instance, I think people can kind of tell when you have an investment in something. Not always, but they can definitely be very disappointed if suddenly they want to talk about the series with you in reference to one of your pieces, and then they find out that you have no idea what the show is and we're only drawing stuff because you know it's popular and sells well. So I always find it's best to just do stuff that I actually am knowledgeable about and love. Again, I think that shines through in your work if you actually enjoy the series and understand it or not. Because let's face it, fan art totally sells way better than original works most of the time. People are just more likely to buy things from a series they enjoy, so it's good to have some fan art you can hang high to draw in a bit of a crowd to your table, especially if you're an artist starting out. If you already feel like you've got a good fan base going, you may find that you can rely on fan art less and less. But maybe you still want to sell some anyways because you love drawing fan art. Really, it's just up to you if you want to draw fan art or not. And I know there's a bit of a legality issue with drawing fan art too. And let me just start off by saying that what I'm about to say is in no way legal advice. This is just from my own personal experience, but please do not take this as legal advice. This isn't going to 100% save you if you happen to get in trouble. I know that's very heavy sounding, but I just have to say that. Just letting you guys know, you're better off speaking to someone who knows this kind of stuff a little bit better. I will say that in my experience, there has been this kind of sort of unspoken rule that as long as you only sell fan art in convention spaces and you only smell it in very small quantities, copyright is sort of overlooked. Some companies understand how fans engaging in their work through the creation and selling of fan art kind of bolsters their communities, and so they sort of turn a blind eye to it. But there are definitely some companies that are not okay with it whatsoever, and it doesn't matter how few of it you sell or whatever, and they will come down hard on people. And they have come down hard on people in the past for it. Check to see if an IP, or intellectual property for those that don't know, check to see if an IP you want to make fan art of has explicitly said to not sell fan art of their IP. For example, I think in the past, I don't know if this is 100% true as of right now, but I remember in the past, like Homestuck, for instance, I'm pretty sure the creator did not want anyone selling any kind of merchandise or fan art at all at conventions, no matter what. But I know the creator of Undertale is totally cool with you selling fan art of Undertale characters. So there's just always going to be a risk when it comes to selling fan art, so just make sure you do the research first. I'm going to link to a spreadsheet I found compiled by several artists that has a decent list of what IPs are okay and not okay to sell fan art of and what people have gotten in trouble for in the past. That link will be in the description of this video, and I highly recommend taking a look at it. It's not totally comprehensive, but it's a really, really good starting point to get an idea of what's okay to sell and what's not. And finally, in the last part of that question, what kind of variety of prints and other imagery is needed to have a solid table? Having a nice variety of items is good from a table setup standpoint, but also from a selling standpoint too. I'll try to go over the topic of table setups a little bit more in a future video, but for now, I'm gonna say that it's good to have things that you can hang up high above your table, like prints or apparel or an item that could sit on a tall pedestal? What's the word for that? And it's also good to have stuff physically sitting on the table. The tall stuff or the stuff hung up high is good for drawing people in from a distance to see what kind of things you have, and then you can have everything else on the table for further browsing. It's also good to have at least one big ticket item and one cheap item. And I don't mean cheap as in like crappy quality. Don't sell crappy quality if you can help it. I mean it as in cheap for someone to purchase. Having both an expensive item and a cheap item is good for helping covering the cost of a table. You can make a great profit off of selling an expensive item, but a lot of times there are people who just can't afford to spend tons of money and they want to support other artists besides just you, and so having a small accessible item like a sticker or a button or something like that is good for them. Think about what kind of stuff pairs well together. Maybe you primarily sell prints, but your illustration would also look great on a button. That right there is an expensive item, a print, and a cheap item, a button. Maybe you usually sell stickers, a cheap item, but the same design could also look great as an enamel pin, a more expensive item. There's a lot of creative ways to make your work more accessible. You just have to find what works best for you and your budget. That's also something that you should consider is your budget. You don't want to break the bank prepping items for your table. Set yourself a decent budget that you think you could feasibly make back at a convention. I know it's like super exciting to say like, ooh, I want to have phone charms made and this company makes them, but the minimum order is 50 and that's gonna cost me like $200 to do, but that's super exciting and I totally want to do it kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, you should totally do it, but only if you think that you can actually make that money back at the convention or very soon into the future. Because the last thing you want to have happen is for you to spend a lot of money on an item and not have it sell. Because not only have you lost a lot of money, but you're also stuck with a bunch of merchandise that you can't get rid of. So try to be very, very realistic when it comes to your budget and what you think sells well. If you're doing it for the very, very first time, I would try to stick with items that are cheaper to produce or easy for you to make, and just use your first convention as kind of a test run of how well does your stuff sell and what sells really well versus what doesn't sell so well. And that way, in future conventions, you can make much more informed decisions in regards to budgeting and what items you personally should sell. You don't have to be a rock star at the very first convention you go to. Selling at a convention is a very slow process of figuring out what works for you. So don't be afraid of doing something very simple for the first time around. And kind of segueing from that, even though it's nice to have a giant variety of things, don't beat yourself up if you don't have as big of a variety as other people. There's actually been studies done before about the paradox of choice and how presenting a customer with too many choices can actually lead to decision paralysis, which can mean that they're so overwhelmed with choices that they end up not buying anything at all. This isn't a hard or fast rule saying like don't have too many options. Honestly, it's not always true in all cases. It's just something to remember if you feel like you haven't done enough. I promise you, you've totally done enough. And conversely, if you feel like you've done too much and you can't cram it all in an itty-bitty table space, consider rotating out your stock. For example, if you sell apparel, maybe only sell sweaters and hoodies in winter conventions and sell tank tops in summer conventions. And like sometimes it's nice to hold on to old prints, but maybe it's time to rotate that out for newer prints. So that's about it. I hope it helps you all and gives you good guidance to start figuring out what to sell at your next convention, or what to sell at your first convention. If you have any more convention related questions, please feel free to leave a comment and I may cover it in a future video just like I did in this video. Until next time, have a great day, friends!